Hey, what the hell are you doing walking around dressed like Star Wars?
It's Comic-Con, you idiot. We're going to the Javits Center.
Well, you're the idiots, because you three guys would never be walking together.
Yeah, you're his boss, and you two guys are enemies.
Yeah, bite me, Captain Kirk.
Hey, whoa, come on. No, that's Star Trek.
Yeah, that's two different franchises.
Yeah, sorry, guys. She doesn't know.
Nah, it's okay. I'm sorry you have to deal with that.
Let's go.
Oh, hey, come on. It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. Not worth it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate. Here for another exciting match in the tournament. Match number 2 of the tournament. Very exciting stuff. We got the number 3 seed, Joe Farrelly, going up against the number 6 seed, Alex Martinez. Most recently, we saw Alex playing against, I believe it was Jack. I think that was maybe the most recent one was against Jack. Or no, it was Richard. It was Richard again. We did that twice. I forgot about that. A very good match. Very big win for Alex in that one. Joe having a really good match at the beginning of the year against Andrew Barr. Unfortunately, losing that match, but still putting up a really excellent performance. Both these guys really good at this. Really fun. And they're buddies. We know that behind the scenes, they're friends. Will they be friendly tonight? I don't know. We'll find out. But I got Mark and Brian here to judge this one with me. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. But I think we should just get right into it. Here's how it's going to work. The players drafted categories, and then we gave them questions based on those categories. They are going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. So they each get 1 minute to open their argument, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing at the end of the debate. Mark, Brian, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards who we thought won the debate. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point. First person to 3 points wins the match. Gentlemen, any questions as we kick this one off?
Nope. Good luck, Alex.
Good luck. Let's do it. All right. We're going to kick this off with the first question, which was drafted by Joe in the category of DC. Your question is, who is the best non-Batman villain in a DC film? Joe, because you drafted this, you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
A truly great villain needs to have, I think, the right motivation, a believable plot, and a great actor behind them. And I think Lex Luthor in 1978's Superman has all of these and more. The late, great Gene Hackman gives us a perfectly balanced performance of being reserved and arch at the same time. His motivations are simple, yes, money, power. But that's one of the many reasons his portrayal of Lex Luthor holds up. His motivation is still one that resonates. Most villains, the villains that, they just want money. It's enough for you to go, yeah, I get it. His plan is simple yet brilliantly diabolical. Hijack a nuke, activate the San Andreas Fault for real estate. So many villains want to destroy the world, take over the world, but Luthor's plan is so uniquely brilliant that it's very difficult, and you never really see it being emulated. Maybe Max Zorin in A View to a Kill wants to activate the San Andreas Fault, but that's about it.
Okay, we're going to move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So, fun fact about me, I grew up fairly religious. My father, in fact, was a pastor, and my mother sang in the choir, and now she does some preaching and testimony when she has the time. So you can imagine how contentious a movie like Constantine would be in this house. I can clearly remember my father preaching about forgiveness and God's love, understanding, and also about punishment and wrath. Every week in churches or wherever you might happen to worship, you will hear that humanity should try harder, that we constantly fall short of the ideal, but that we are loved anyways, and that love should encourage us to try again, to try harder. So you can imagine how terrifying Gabriel is, who directly to Constantine's face tells him and tells us, your fucked.
All right. Great openings by both competitors. Gentlemen, you have 5 minutes to continue the debate now. I will throw up the 1 minute warning when the time comes. If you're talking over each other, I will throw up the let your opponent talk. Don't make me do that. It'll make me sad, and then I got to send Nick to your house, and it's a whole mess. So 5 minute free form, and one of you start.
One of my main issues with Gabriel is that her story was done better in 99 by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. You know, it's Loki and Bartleby in Dogma. It's I'm jealous of God and humanity's relationship, and I'm going to side with a demon to undo the world.
I would kind of push back on that. I wouldn't say that Gabriel is jealous of this relationship. I would say that Gabriel doesn't fundamentally understand the relationship. Gabriel is only a half demon. Constantine tells that she's a half-breed, sort of derogatorily. But the whole thing with Gabriel is that Gabriel thinks humanity should earn their place in heaven via suffering, which is directly contradictive to most Christian sources, most Christian text, and is actually the punishment in most Christian texts is actually the end game of the failed state, not necessarily the path to get into heaven. That alone is like hugely heretical to a ton of people. That would be massively offensive. Much more offensive, I think, on a grand scale than blowing up Hackensack, New Jersey.
I think one of the other concerns I have, though, is that nothing I think separates really Gabriel from a generic villain. Her interactions with John are typical arch flexing, you know, sort of you can't win, not direct quotes, obviously, that I'm unbeatable. This is why I'm doing the things I'm doing. But what I like about what you get with the sort of the combination of Hackman in the role, Donner as a director, and Mario Puzo as a writer is that they create Lex Luthor as this villain that is playful and layered. You know, he doesn't act with Superman the way he acts with Otis or Miss Tessmacher. And we only really see Gabriel interacting with John and Lucifer. And we don't really get layers to that character. Whereas I think what you get with Lex Luthor is multiple layers. You get a little bit of background with his father. And it's always this sort of, it's a diabolical scheme and very evil in what the amount of people he's going to kill. But there's always that playfulness underneath it, which I think just layers that villain.
So it is very playful. It like rides this line of like, I think you said like being arch, but also being like fairly realistic. And I think that kind of muddles the point a bit of like effectively becoming a mass murderer by nuking like two halves of the United States is what puts him in this like very elite mass murderer range that is undercut by him going Otisburg, like, you know, it's this like very strange it's a very strange performance. It's the way it's done is very strange, but it's the way it's written, and I think it's flawed the way it's written. This is not we've never had a properly good comics accurate Lex Luthor. He has really nothing to do with Superman besides the fact that Superman is trying to stop him. The interactions between Constantine and Gabriel are so personal. They are like attacking Constantine wants to get into heaven, and he is trying to earn his way into heaven, and Gabriel tells him outright, you don't believe in God. You know that God exists. You know about the other side. You're going to die early because of the things that you've done, and you will go to hell because of the things you have done. There is no path to heaven. And that, again, would be super heretical to a ton of people.
I see what you're getting at, but I think that's part of my issue with Gabriel is her sort of the attitude towards that. It's very on the nose, whereas Lex is a little bit more layered and is a little bit more undercut. And I think one of the key things here is when we talk about best villain, not just in terms of portrayal and character on screen, but best at being a villain. Let's not forget, Lex Luthor succeeds. He nuked the San Andreas Fault, activates and begins crumbling into the sea. He's only undone because Superman turns back time. It's very rare that we get the villain to succeed, and Lex Luthor does that. So in terms of just being a villain as a character, I think he's the best, and also I think he's the best at being a villain. And also, you say it's not. There's not that connection, but I think Superman's just sort of there stopping him. Lex Luthor sees Superman and says, "No, I am going to use my greatest criminal mind of our age, and I am going to use that, and I'm going to beat him with my intelligence. I'm going to trick him into coming to my lair. I'm going to trick him into opening the case of kryptonite." And that's what I think really works. He sees Superman as a personal affront to himself.
Yes, but not in the sense that he's trying to tangle with Superman. He is Superman is a nuisance to this plan, not the enemy of it.
Okay. We're going to start with Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Lex is smart. He wants to sell land so he'll be the richest guy in the world. Kill lots of people, et al. But it's not hell on earth. It's not surrendering all of humanity to torment and judgment ahead of its time for the sake of making humanity more grateful for forgiveness. Lexland would suck, absolutely. But Lexland and Otisburg is not a betrayal of heaven's ideals for the sake of suffering. We are not worthy of the forgiveness God would give us, and yet that's what makes Gabriel the superior villain. They're complex, morally ambiguous, and sincere. Gabriel doesn't think they're evil, they think they're right. That kind of ideology-driven villain is far more compelling than a guy chasing beachfront property. Gabriel manipulates, betrays, and nearly unleashes hell, all under the false belief that they're serving a divine purpose. And I'll yield the rest of that time.
Okay. Gonna go over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Lex Luthor accurately describes himself as the greatest criminal mind of our age. He is able to demonstrate this by learning where Superman comes from and how to beat him. He succeeds in his plan to activate the San Andreas Fault and is only undone in a way by his hubris. If he aims that missile anywhere other than Hackensack, he succeeds. Hackman gives his performance the perfect balance of arch and reserve with a brilliant playful energy. Gabriel is a failure as an angel and as a servant of Mammon. And Swinton's performance, while great in the arch moments, offers nothing in terms of really layers and depth. Lex Luthor is the superior villain in terms of the character portrayed in screen and in terms of being an actual villain and succeeding in the plan. Gabriel, for all intents and purposes, has a plan, fails to do that plan, and fails to beat someone who, while being a good character, failed to kill himself twice.
Okay. All right. Bring in the judges. Okie dokie. Interesting. I was excited for this question. I like villains. They're fun. Lex Luthor, a pick I expected. I was not expecting Gabriel. Didn't know how Alex was going to debate that. I honestly forgot that's who he picked. I thought he was about to throw out some Peter Storm Devil action, but we got Gabriel instead. And Alex convinced me that Gabriel is a pretty great villain in terms of what their threat is and how they're portrayed, and kind of convinced me that Lex is the dynamic between the goofy 70s nature of the performance and what is actually occurring isn't as good. But that's my opinion. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I just think in general, I kind of agree with a lot of what you said, and I just think in general, Alex just pitched the more interesting character. If we're talking about just a villain who is not evil for the sake of being evil, but they are evil because they believe they are right, and also just the sense that this is also an angel who we see it as being good, but is kind of the tormentor in the film. That was a very interesting way to approach the question.
Brian, your thoughts?
I went Alex as well. I think that for me, it seems like best is kind of a nebulous term, because especially in talking about something like this, there was discussion about who had the best plan, who was more successful as a villain and things like that. But for me, it came down to, like Mark said, kind of which one was more interesting as a villain. And for me, that was Gabriel.
Okay. All right. Alex wins the first point. We're going to move on to question 2, drafted by Alex in the category of action. Don't know why he picked this, but we're about to find out. Your question is, what is the best action scene in a G.I. Joe film? These are movies. I've seen them. Alex, you're going first. 1 minute when you start talking.
What makes a good action scene? For the sake of consistency, I've argued in other debates that action scenes should inform you about the characters, and the characters should inform you about the action. Pirates of the Caribbean. Remember Jack Sparrow fighting Will just so he could escape, and then 2 movies later saying we should fight to run away. Action informing character, character informing action. In G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, a great chase is led through the streets of Paris. It takes about 7 minutes in movie street crimes minutes. The stakes, well, that depends on who you ask. The big threat is a nanite warhead on its way to the Eiffel Tower. It's pretty bad. But also, Duke wants the Baroness back. Snake Eyes versus Storm Shadow. Everyone versus traffic. And of course, mech suits against the forces of physics. It's bright, it's flashy, it's distinctive, and it's the best G.I. Joe action scene.
All right. We're going to move over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
The mountainside fight sequence in G.I. Joe Retaliation is the best action sequence in a G.I. Joe film. It's a sequence that keeps you on the edge of your seat and is done in a way unique to most action sequences. It perfectly balances simplicity and creativity. The simplicity in that its focus is just on sort of your 2 characters in Snake Eyes and his apprentice Jinx in their mission to capture Storm Shadow. The simplicity allows the scene to focus on the action, with both characters fighting a series of henchmen while climbing and swinging from the Himalayan mountains. It's an action sequence unlike any that's really been done before, which makes it unpredictable. And as an audience member, unpredictability is what you want in an action sequence. We've seen fight sequences before, we've seen chase sequences before, and they all tend to follow the same basic path. But a mountainside fight sequence, with characters hooked onto ropes, swinging and fighting, it's an adrenaline thrill ride for the ages.
Time. All right. G.I. Joe. I don't know what their catchphrase. Go Cobra, go. Is that it? Nah, go.
So first of all, I a big problem I have is Against a Mountain is not a thrilling action backdrop. Staging a gray background when your heroes wear mostly black and yellow is bad staging. The other guys are dressed much more appropriately because they're all red shirts. None of them have a meaningful face, and they're all dispatched in 1 swipe or 1 kick. It's not dynamic at all.
I disagree. I think it's very dynamic. You open with this great scene of sort of the henchmen coming into this fight, and I think that's one of the things that sort of sets those stakes up from the beginning, is that these henchmen, they work at the monastery, they guard the monastery. That is that they are on that mountain permanently, and even at that point they cannot hook on, and they sort of the first couple sort of fall straight away, and that sets you the stakes right there. Is that these experienced ones, they are struggling, and we've not seen Snake Eyes and we've not seen Jinx in this situation before. Earlier in the film, we set up that Jinx is not quite up to Snake Eyes' level, and that puts the stakes in there because Jinx is a very likable character. You sort of that's the sort of journey you're following for part of this, and I think that really sets up the stakes that even the experienced ones are struggling. Is it going to be the same for Jinx? And I think the stakes are lowered right at the beginning of your scene when they put the mechanized suits on for the first time. It's like, oh, he gets hit by a car. No, I'm good. The stakes really for the characters are like, no, you might break these suits and they cost money. It's just the stakes for the characters are low.
So the stakes for characters in mech suits is not about that scene is not about, oh, look out, Damon Wayans is in trouble. It's about racing against time. The mech suits actually are a bridge between how far away the armored truck that is carrying the nanite warhead is and how close the two guys in mech suits are. They're perpetually getting closer and closer and closer, and it's the weapons in the armored truck that are keeping them apart. It's not about Ripcord and Duke being harmed by gunfire. That's not what the stakes of the scene is. The stakes of the scene is Duke wanting to get the Baroness back. He's still very much in love with her. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow continuing their perpetual war. Scarlet and Ripcord having a moment. Like that's what's so interesting about this scene is that like it's not just action for the sake of action. It is action for the sake of furthering these relationships as well as furthering the movie. That tower, the Eiffel Tower, is gonna come down. Like at the end, the Eiffel Tower comes crashing down, and that's a great visual of this massive structure that we're all familiar with coming crashing down. But along the way, we've learned more about these characters. We've developed these characters in what would be otherwise just like 7 minutes of blinking at a screen.
But I think that's one of my biggest issues. You've listed all those things. You look at some of the best action sequences that have been done in films. Like you look at films like The Raid, or you look at films like John Wick, and it's a very simple goal, and it allows you to absorb that action. The problem with your action sequence is that there's far too much going on. You've got these characters over here doing this, and you've got these characters here doing this, and it's too choppy, it's too edity, and it cuts from bit to bit to bit without any real coherency in the action sequences. With the scene on the mountainside, you've got this is the characters, this is their mission, this is the obstacle, and this is the unique set piece that we have created that's not been done. You've not seen anything like this before, and we are going to give that to you. And we're going to give you this action sequence of the swinging, of the jumping, of the fighting, of the falling, and then catching yourself. At any point, you don't know what's going to happen because it's unpredictable. With a chase sequence like yours, it becomes too predictable because we've seen it before, and it's too choppy and it's too incoherent.
If the red shirts in the mountain sequence had even landed a blow against anyone, against Snake Eyes or Jinx, you might have had a point there. But speaking of editing, the thing with the mountain scene is that it oscillates between this like matrixy slow motion to after they've been kicked off of their rope, all of the bad guys fall down at this ludicrous like 1.2 times speed. They're not falling at the rate that gravity is setting out for them. So it just has this like tone of dissonance. It's like the editing for that scene is just decorative basil on top of a meal. Rise of Cobra's use of slow motion is to accentuate how close the missiles are to hitting the suits and how exactly the suits are saving their lives.
But that's the problem. We've already set up that these suits are fairly indestructible, so you're not having that. You're saying the suits are saving their lives, but it's already been established that is not really the biggest threat that's coming for it. You don't know the threat that is coming.
But they do have to catch up.
Time. Okay, let's go to Joe first for closings. Joe, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
The action scene on the mountainside is something that is unique. It is something that is different and something we've not seen before. And that's what you want from an action sequence. You want to be given something new. You've got these two characters who you've had time to get to know, and you are focused on them and their mission and the different ways in which they are going to take out the henchmen. Car chases themselves are a staple of action films, and nothing here in G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra is unique or new. Chase sequences have been done. You've got Fast and Furious, you've got the Bond films, you've seen those chase sequences. We've even seen chase sequences in Paris. You look at John Wick 4 and Mission Impossible Fallout. These are films that have done these things better. The problem you have with the Rise of Cobra scene is, to quote Benoit Blanc, it's dumb. And not so dumb it's brilliant, it's just dumb. Snake Eyes is literally hanging from the side of a Cobra car, and the driver has to wait to be told to shake him off. When Scarlet has a henchman who is about to kill someone in her sights, she waits. He's about to kill Snake Eyes, and she waits. Look at me first, then I'm going to shoot you. It's a dumb action sequence.
Okay, let's move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
What is G.I. Joe all about? High stakes action, wild technology, big moments. The Paris chase from Rise of Cobra is the superior action scene because it throws us into a busy major city. Heroes and villains race through traffic, trying to cause or stop a major catastrophe. Civilians scream, the streets and the buildings crumble, and the clock keeps ticking down. The tension is real. The scale is massive. And the results, the Eiffel Tower comes crashing down. It's bold and chaotic and striking all the way through, but not just for the sake of tearing that thing down, but also to keep and raise the tension between the characters Duke and Baroness, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, Ripcord and Scarlet, Scarlet and Baroness. All of them are having moments that raise the stock because they're not just action figures banging against each other. They're good guys and they're bad guys. The Paris Chase, the best G.I. Joe action scenes.
You guys have thought about this a lot more than I have. But that's that's fair. Oh man. It was your job today to do that, to think about it. So that's fair.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with Brian on this.
Well, I'm not going to hold it against Alex that at one point I'm pretty sure he said Damon Wayans instead of Marlon, but we'll just put that aside. I went with Joe on this one. I'm sure Robert would have a field day with this one, being G.I. Joe, the non-American hero, I guess. I just think that that Joe did a better job of explaining why his is more unique. It's more dynamic. With Alex's scene, I got the feeling that, more action doesn't necessarily mean better action. I think Joe did a much better job of breaking down why his is more unique.
Okay, I also went with Joe. Brian kind of just took the words out of my mouth. I felt Alex painted a picture of a scene that sounds exciting, big, over the top, something that I was making my imagination run wild of fun. But Joe, I think, it's not. I've seen the film, but like Brian said, I think Joe kind of painted the picture of bigger isn't always better, and kind of painted the picture of a really great action scene with two characters in a really cool, interesting setting that made, and also some plot stuff to back it up. Though, from what I remember in 2013, that film, not much of a plot, or maybe too much. Mark, your thoughts?
First of all, I'm only assuming we did not count the animated G.I. Joe the movie, because if we had, y'all would just race to pick the beginning of that film where we hear the song and they're fighting in the Statue of Liberty. It's amazing. There would have been no contest. I actually did go with Alex on this one. I feel like Alex kind of pitched. Alex went kind of deep into his scene, not only kind of propping up the action, but also kind of propping up at least the character stakes. And I think Alex also found a way to kind of dodge the mech suit of it all by saying that them being in danger is not the stakes. Them racing to at least save the Eiffel Tower is the actual stakes. For them, the racing against time is what we're going for, really. So I kind of like that deflection. And I just think all those factors, I do think he pitched the better scene than Joe did.
All right. Well, Alex gets Joe gets the point and ties it with Alex 1-1. So we are all tied up, moving into the next question, drafted by Joe in the category of comedy. Let's do this. Question is, what is the best song in a Muppet movie? Hell yeah. Joe, you get to start. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
I think if you look at some of the greatest songs especially in family sort of films and family comedies, I think a great song should be memorable, obviously catchy, fit in with the story. And I think a great song in a Muppet film should be all those things, but also speak to what the Muppets are and what they represent. And that's why I think Cabin Fever from Muppet Treasure Island is the best song from a Muppet film. Firstly, it is an absolute banger. You can not only sing along to it, you will enthusiastically sing along to it. It's funny. There are some really funny lines in it. The lines speak to that growing madness of the crew. This is a song that also encapsulates multiple languages, characters of multiple ethnicities. And what more do you want from a song in a Muppet movie than one that embraces insanity, diversity, fourth wall breaks, and above all else is an absolute banger.
All right. Oh, stopwatch was messed up there for a second. Okay, we're gonna bring in Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
So I looked up why people like or love the Muppets, and I came across an article written by Talia Spillerman called "Always Count on the Muppets to Get Things Started." And I quote, "Simultaneously, the Muppets have both an upbeat youthful energy and the vast life experiences that tend to come with age. We can't find this anomaly anywhere else in our life, which is why we are transfixed by the Muppet franchise." She goes on to say that the Muppets allow us to see all these strong personalities interact, such as Miss Piggy arguing with Fozzie Bear to get the spotlight, or Animal wanting to overplay the drums to the other band members' dismay. I agree. The interpersonal relationships and interactions between the Muppets are the heart of the entire thing. My personal favorite relationship is Fozzie and Kermit. Together, they kick off a wild ride of a movie franchise with Moving Right Along, a song about just being on the road with your buddy. It's the franchise distilled into big dreams, good times and good news, and good friends you can't lose.
Time. Beautiful. Two excellent picks. Gentlemen, 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So I think one of my main issues with Moving Right Along, not that it's a bad song, it's a good song to hum along to. You know, not sing along to. And I think a really good song is one that you want to jump into the screen and get involved with. And I think that's what Cabin Fever is, as opposed to Moving Right Along.
It's all right. For me, it's very busy, and it kind of goes through this really wild spectrum. And I think you think that's a good thing, but I think of it as, I think it's a bad thing, because it goes through this like tropical party and then German folk music. And the two don't really correlate.
They shouldn't correlate
With the like funeral dirge that follows the German folk. I don't think it's cohesive. And Moving Right Along is
insanity, though.
It's about insanity, but it's dissonant to an audience. Do you know what I mean? Like the madness, we have to understand it and we have to be able to process it. I don't think the insanity of Cabin Fever is processable in any meaningful way. I think what bothers me most also about Cabin Fever is that there's not really any Muppets in it that are super meaningful to anything. I think the one that is, if you look up the sing-along version on YouTube, which is what I did, there is exactly one Muppet that is identified by name, and that Muppet is Mr. Bitta. And I think it's just because he has one joke.
Let's give Angel Marie for that beautiful falsetto. Let's not take away from Angel Marie in that towards the end of the song. And I think one of the things with Moving Right Along as well is just that once the song is done, it's done and it's sort of forgotten. Even with Cabin Fever, once that song's done, later on in the film, you have Clueless Morgan in the jail cell going, pretty much saying he wish he could be part of that. And I think that's the same thing you get with the audience. You know, what was that song that just happened? It's Cabin Fever.
It's Cabin Fever, but even now, even though we were talking about your pick, I don't know that I could hum you Cabin Fever, but you just did a wonderful job humming Moving Right Along. So I will say, like, if we're talking,
I can hum, but I can't sing, so I won't. You know, I won't lose. I'm not going to lose votes by trying to sing a song.
I will say the jokes in Cabin Fever are only okay. I think Mr. Bitta has the one standout joke, and it's about getting a hold of the scriptwriter. I think
that's a good joke.
That's the standout joke. The one joke in like 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Moving Right Along has the sun coming up in the west, fetch us, we're in Saskatchewan, a bear in his natural habit, a Studebaker, a fork in the road, and it has Big Bird.
That's actually one of the other issues I actually have with Moving Right Along is that those two of those jokes, the Studebaker joke and the fork in the road joke, and the fork in the road joke is a great joke, but literally for the fork in the road joke, the music stops and they say the words. They don't sing the words. The music stops and they say the words. Those two are the best jokes, two of the best parts of Moving Right Along. If you try to listen to the song, they are not there because they're not part of the song. They're part of, they're ancillary to the song.
I would argue that there are a ton of songs, both modern and songs that were being made at the time, where the music does cut out or the music stops and a completely other audio is played. Think of something like Billie Eilish opens a song of hers by directly pulling and inserting a clip from The Office, The American Office. Sorry. So it's not like it is musically unheard of to do that. And I will say Muppet Treasure Island, Cabin Fever is much more visual than audio, switching between these different styles. But Moving Right Along stays musically, it stays in American folk, and it never sacrifices musicality and it stays catchy.
And I think again that's one of the issues is that this is we're talking about the Muppets here, and I think the Muppets should encapsulate more, and there should be there's not just the best song in a Muppet movie. There's also the fact that we're talking about the Muppets, and I think the song should represent and should show us what the Muppets are about and what the Muppets can be. And I think the fourth wall breaks. I think the sort of that visualization of wackiness and insanity is a very big part of what the Muppets is, and I think that speaks more to Cabin Fever than it does to Moving Right Along. And I think Rainbow Connection is actually probably the better song from your movie.
Okay, let's go to Alex to close first. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
If we're talking about what makes a Muppet song truly great, we're talking about charm, chemistry, musicality, and lasting impact. Cabin Fever is all sight gags and audio dissonance. If heart and humor is what defined the Muppets, which I think we can all agree on, then for sure Moving Right Along is the definitive celebration of friendship and optimism and relentless forward momentum, and it never sacrifices basic musicality to achieve that. So if we're choosing the best Muppet song, the one that defines the franchise, the one that uplifts its audience, the one that endures, the one that will endure, the answer to me is clear. We are moving right along, and we will not be stopping for Cabin Fever. And I will yield that time.
All right. I'm going to go over to Joe to close his argument. Joe, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Cabin Fever is a song that perfectly encapsulates what a song in a Muppet film should be. It's funny, it's wacky, it's inclusive, it breaks the fourth wall. It's catchy. You want to join in. Moving Right Along, as I said, it's a fine song, but it's the kind of song you want to hum along to. Whereas you don't want to jump into the crowd and sing at the top of your lungs. It's not the best song in its individual film, and its best jokes are outside of the song itself. We talk about, the Muppets being about a certain thing, but I also think the Muppets themselves, it's about, like, what are they going to do next? What are they going to do here? How are they going to entertain me? And the Muppets have always been about pushing those boundaries, and I think Cabin Fever pushes those boundaries in an extra way. I think not only does it encapsulate what the Muppets are, I also think it is the better song in that you do want to be part of that song. Whereas Moving Right Along, you don't necessarily want to be part of it. You hear it and you forget about it.
Okay. All right. Bring in the judges. No man or a Muppet. Come on, guys. No, we built this city on rock and roll. I know it didn't come from the movie, but it's good. Okay. We built this city. Mark, you are kicking us off, my friend.
Right. Yeah, I cannot think of a question I've sat and had to judge that is less for me. It's hard for me to discern any of this. cool puppets and they're singing. I think if I were to grasp like kind of what this sounds like it is, and like I did go with Alex again, which the thing that we'll say, Joe, I don't hate you, just kind of the way this is kind of coming out today. I don't know, just the way Alex explained it sounded like he picked the more all around song. It can kind of fit for everything, where it sounded at least more Muppets, or at the very least he kind of presented it better in that way. And so, yeah, just one of Alex on that one.
Brian.
Yeah, I also went with Alex on this one. For me, I think part of the problem was that Joe told us a lot, told us, why he liked the song. But for somebody like me trying to judge his argument about it, I don't think I got a good enough picture of what the song is and what it's about, because I've not seen this, and so I'm not familiar with it. So I needed to know more about it to understand some of the things he was saying about why he liked it. So that was a little bit of an uphill battle for him. So I think he could have fleshed that out more. But also, I think that Alex did a good job of pitching how, his is about the, camaraderie of the Muppets and things like that. He talked about how Joe's only has like one, named Muppet in it. Joe tried to get in some attacks about like how it stopped for like some spoken lines, but at the same time, then Alex was like, well, there's a lot of yours is visual gags, which is not the song, that's visual gags. So it all kind of worked out, but I gave it to Alex.
Okay, clean sweep. I did go with Alex as well. Both are great songs. As someone who very much enjoys both these movies. Sorry, Mark. You describing it as puppet. that was funny. Yeah, but I think Alex just did a really good job of taking a really great song like Cabin Fever and picking out the little things in it and making them big things that Joe really couldn't combat against. Moving right along. All of the different jokes, the focus on the Muppets, specifically Kermit and Fozzie. Alex just did a really good job in this one. Joe did great too, but Alex took everything Joe said and did a really great job of kind of flipping it. So Alex gets the point. It is 2-1. So Joe needs to hit this next one in order to send it to the bonus. Question was drafted by Alex in the category of epic adventures. Question is, what is the best quote from a Middle-earth film? Alex, you're kicking it off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I want everyone right at home to close their eyes, and I want you to think back to watching Fellowship of the Ring for the first time. Think about Frodo falling for the 20th time because a troll gets him with what I can only imagine is the biggest stick they could find turned into a spear. And we're running. If you're able to, imagine running with me and try, if you can't, to remember how you reacted to seeing the Balrog in the distance for the first time. Remember Gandalf standing alone on a bridge made for exactly one person across with no safety railing to speak of. And what does he uncork as he stands there facing down a demon of the ancient world? It's Gandalf's hymn moment. He starts to talk. And he tells this demon, no, you cannot pass. Go back to the shadow. You shall not pass.
Time. God, I'm a nerd. Okay, we're going to go over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. This quote from Bilbo Baggins in Fellowship of the Ring is the best quote from a Middle-earth film. A great quote should be one that you can take and apply to your own life, one that works in the context of the film. It is this quote that really foreshadows Frodo's journey to Mount Doom and beyond. By the time we hit Return of the King, Frodo is unable to keep his feet and is swept off to this dark place that almost sees Sauron and the Ring reunited. But when this quote is said, it's Frodo telling Sam, remember what Bilbo used to say. And this quote also foreshadows Sam's journey, because when you hit Return of the King, Sam is able to keep his feet and is able to save Middle-earth. But at the same time, it's about the adventure, which is what Middle-earth is.
Oh my god. All right. 5-minute freeform when he starts talking.
I think there is a certain sentiment behind Frodo quoting Bilbo to comfort Sam. What I don't agree with is I don't think it's appropriate for Fellowship of the Ring. For the story that Frodo and Sam are going to go on, I don't think it's appropriate because, and this is true, they have a guide for most of their journey. By the time that they get to Return of the King and they get to the volcano, or they get to Mordor, go to where the volcano is. It's the biggest thing around that's not the eye. They have a guide with them the whole time. You Shall Not Pass, for me, is everything that is Lord of the Rings. It is self-sacrifice. It is standing in front of a giant evil. And beyond that, it's just so stinking quotable.
It's quotable, but it falls into the same realm as My Precious or For Frodo in that it's quotable, but there's not much to it. I think what you've taken from my quote is very surface level. Yes, they have a guide to where they are going physically, but I think that quote is also more about there's more metaphor behind it. If you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you may be swept off to. That's more about the personal journey, the mental journey that Frodo and Sam go on. My quote may be a simple moment, but I think when you put it under the microscope, I think it has depth, profundity, and that foreshadowing that makes it a better quote than something that you can just shout. And you left out quite a bit of your quote, the bits that conveniently are quite mumbled. I'm the servant of the super fire, will of the flame of Arnor. That's it's throwaway.
I'll get to it. So the rest, what you consider throwaway, is Gandalf actually having a rare moment. For most of Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf is the kooky wizard. That's how the hobbits know him. And that's how most of the Fellowship knows him, as the kooky wizard. In a rare moment that Gandalf has not done for these people in since they've known him, Gandalf reveals a lot about himself. In that moment, he's not just the old man that they've known since they were kids that Bilbo told them about. He is an agent. I am the servant of the secret fire. I wield the flame of Arnor. And because of these things, it's like a resume. He is speaking directly to the Balrog, saying, I am these things. You are great. You are mighty. I may not win, but I have agency. I have power. I have some engagement in this. I will sacrifice. I will stand here. I will stop you. Go back before we have a problem. It's not the kind of thing that needs to be put under the microscope. You may call it surface, but the surface and what is below the surface are exactly right next to each other. There is no microscope you have to put it under.
I disagree with quite a lot of those points, actually. I think one issue is that those lines, they're not given the same gravitas and they are mumbled when you compare them to Go Back to the Shadow and You Shall Not Pass. And also, we have seen Gandalf demonstrate himself like this to the hobbits. You see that when Bilbo refuses the ring and he creates that dark shadow in Bilbo's house and says, Bilbo Baggins, I am not a conjurer of cheap tricks. And that is a moment that gives Gandalf that gravitas, not just for the hobbits, but for us as an audience as well. And you see it with Sam when he pulls Sam. And Sam does know, because he says, don't turn me into something unnatural. The hobbits do know this about him. And I think that's where you sort of misunderstand the hobbits' relationship with Gandalf.
Sam has inferred through stories that Gandalf has some kind of magical ability, but Gandalf's never really turned anything into anything, that as far as we know. Like, that's not the kind of magic that Gandalf practices in any meaningful way. What I will say about You Shall Not Pass, the various parts of it, is that, again, they're powerful words. They inspire great courage. You Shall Not Pass is practically biblical. Taken from Job 38:11, he says, "Hitherto thou shalt come, but no further. And here thy proud waves be stayed." It's a direct quote from a very religious Tolkien. It's probably a direct reference saying, no, this is as far as you will go. It's far more quotable. This is what people make reaction videos about. Your quote is almost always cut out of every reaction video. That's not important to these character stories. Your quote is actually the one that needs to be put under the microscope.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to give it that reference that it needs and that it deserves because of what it means to those characters. Your moment is made more by Gandalf's sacrifice, which is ultimately undone, whereas this is a moment that informs the whole of our character's journey.
Okay, we're going to start with Joe on this one. Joe, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
The "You shall not pass" speech is a memorable moment that ends with a line that is quotable, but the speech itself, I think, is forgettable. A lot of that speech is spoken at a mumble and uses terms and lines that we don't really understand as an audience. It's filled with references that will go over most viewers' head. What is the secret fire of the Flame of Honor? We don't know. Who knows? Who cares? My quote is the perfect blend of nuance, foreshadowing, and a life lesson that a perfect quote and a great quote should be. It's beautifully executed and it's beautifully spoken with that lovely transition from Frodo's voice into Bilbo's voice, informing what we know about these characters, about what we heard about Bilbo's previous adventures, and what we are going to find out about where not just Frodo, but Sam are also going. That idea of keeping your feet because you don't know where you're going to be swept off to. That speaks to them as characters, their physical journey that they go on to Mount Doom, as well as the personal journey they go on to in Frodo's relationship with the ring.
Okay, I'm going to move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Bilbo's quiet reflection is poetic wise, and it captures a quiet wonder of adventure. But let's be honest, it is a gentle nudge that serves as much to go outside as it is to stay inside. Gandalf's "You shall not pass" speech, that is the stuff that shakes mountains. You could run through a wall after hearing it. In those lines, Gandalf stands alone between his friends and death, facing the Balrog with nothing but his staff, his will, and courage. That defiant cry is the turning point of the entire story, a declaration of sacrifice and power that defines the character and the stakes. It's cinematic, it's visceral, you can see it, you can hear it, and I've never showed you a clip. It's unforgettable. Bilbo's line passively inspires thought. Gandalf's line inspires action.
Okay. Gonna bring in the judges. Oh, I love Lord of the Rings. Okay. Okay. Great picks. So many to choose from. A lot of talking in these movies. So many options. Mark, I got a big nod out of Mark. I went with Joe. I think as far as scene, I enjoy watching and get Alex picked a great one, but I think Joe painted a really great picture for me about a really great quote that inspires the journey or informs us of the characters and their journey throughout all of the films, as well as a great quote in the moment, and also brings into our lives something. I think he did a really great job of not trying to necessarily say that Alex's quote was bad, but just saying that just because it's quotable or part of it is quotable doesn't necessarily make it the best. Though I will say that Alex's closing there saying like the mind inspires action. That was badass, Alex. Great job. All right, Mark, your thoughts.
Yeah. I also went with Joe.
I got him.
I just think in general, I kind of like the overalls that Joe's quote feels like it kind of encompasses like the entire franchise in a way, and kind of foreshadow. Like I liked his argument of doing that, and also how it foreshadows like future events. I do think Alex brought in a better argument than I thought he would, at least for like I Shall Not Pass, and trying to connect it more through kind of the theme of the Lord of the Rings journeys. I think that he did a better job than I expected for that one. Also brought in more religious undertones. I was not expecting that. A lot more religious undertones I thought we would get to today. But hey, that's the game that we play. But yeah, Joe gets this one.
All right, Brian, your thoughts.
I also would go with Joe. I think that if this had been like most quotable line, Alex might have got it, and because as Joe pointed out, that last part of it with the "You Shall Not Pass" is very quotable, but as he pointed out, the rest of it's kind of forgettable. Whereas with his, he talked about how his is more meaningful, how it informed the whole journey, and I think that as far as what is a better representation of these characters and the journey they go through, I thought it worked as a better line.
And you love Lord of the Rings.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. All right, we're gonna move on. Oh, I said, and you love Lord of the Rings.
I like Lord of the Rings. I just don't love it like some people.
That's fair. Oh wait, yeah, you're right. I was thinking of Kirk. Kirk is the one that's a negative Nancy.
I like him a lot.
All right, moving on to the speed round. Here's how this is going.
I knew this was going to happen.
I randomized which side of Fanzone this was going to come from, fandom or general movies. I then randomized the categories that weren't drafted in the main prep question round. I'm going to say the question, and then I'm going to repeat the question. Once I've said the question the second time, you may answer said question. Whoever says their answer first will be going first. You will each get 45 seconds, followed by 30 seconds. Players, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. The side of Fanzone that was randomized was fandom. The category is the Law and Order.
Okay.
And we did 4 best questions. We're sticking with it. What is the best Law and Order film? Again, what is the best Law and Order film? It was like the relief on you and Kirk when I said general movies last night.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Okay.
Alex said his.
What?
Yeah, I said mine first.
When did you say your answer?
I didn't hear him say anything either.
Yeah.
I said RoboCop.
Yeah.
Oh, none of us heard you.
No.
I'm sorry.
I heard that at all.
I hear you, Alex. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we're gonna do a little editing, or maybe I'll leave it. I'm leaving it.
What are we doing?
We'll leave it in. Okay. Wow. I'm gonna stay on screen for this. We're doing RoboCop versus Die Hard with a Vengeance. Alex, you spoke first, so you get to go first. You have 45 seconds when you start talking.
The original RoboCop is considered one of the best allegorical action movies of all time. It is super depressing. It is ultra violent, and it is and those two things are what people generally love about it. You get to see people get the fate that is coming to them in increasingly violent ways. But it's not just empty calorie violence. It is violence that directly serves as a metaphor for the destruction of the abandonment of the city and the use of capitalism and how that affects a city that is under attack from it. In that respect, RoboCop has a lot more going on in it than, say, Die Hard with a Vengeance. RoboCop is considered its peak, whereas Die Hard with a Vengeance is considered lesser material.
Joe, 45 seconds.
What Die Hard with a Vengeance does really well is it puts characters into a new situation, something we've not really seen before with the Die Hard franchise. You get John McClane in this different situation. He's not just taking on terrorists. He is put in the middle of the action. He is put out there trying to solve all these different puzzles. You get a great appearance from Samuel L. Jackson counteracting that. I think you get the stakes with the school and with Samuel L. Jackson's nephews thrown in there. You get great action sequences like the car chase or the train bombing. You also get a really great villain in Simon Gruber, played by oh my god, I'm going to forget his name. Let's just move on from that. That's really bad. You get really great action sequences, really well put together, a really dynamic villain, and I think what it does differently is you've got this great musical sequence, and I think some of the issues with RoboCop, I think a lot of it now doesn't hold up, whereas Die Hard with a Vengeance still holds up.
Alex, 30 seconds.
Like I said before, Die Hard with a Vengeance is considered lesser Die Hard. The original Die Hard is considered widely considered the peak of the franchise. Die Hard with a Vengeance is frequently criticized for being less iconic, less tightly plotted than the original Die Hard. The first film is a fight for survival. This Die Hard with a Vengeance ends up feeling like a maze as opposed to a fight for survival. RoboCop stays in a consistent tone with the rest of its franchise, being a violent exploration of its themes, including capitalism and how that affects the city.
Joe, 30 seconds.
What's great about Die Hard with a Vengeance is it still keeps John McClane as this grounded cop, where the sequels didn't do that. Yes, your sequels didn't hold up, but I think one of the major issues with RoboCop is I think a lot of it doesn't hold up. You get those really bad effects with the death at the end, with those really long arms. I think some of the visual effects don't hold up. I think some of the story doesn't quite hold up. I think some of the villains aren't as memorable, and I think with Die Hard with a Vengeance, you get memorable villains, you get memorable side characters, whereas RoboCop, it really is, you focus on RoboCop and RoboCop alone, whereas you get great side characters, great action sequences, great puzzle solving. I think as a whole movie, it's better.
All right. Whew.
Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
It's 10 past 2 in the morning.
You're a legend. The reason I said, Brian, I love you, is because they said I was thinking you would say Die Hard, and then he said Die Hard with a Vengeance, and your eyes went.
I was like, okay. Yeah, they're both wrong. The correct answer is Die Hard, but yeah.
All right, Brian, I believe you're kicking this one off.
Yes, personal biases aside, of course.
Yes.
I did still go with Die Hard with Vengeance with Joe. I think that he just pitched a much better idea of how everything about the movie works. You have a great main character. You have a great, more memorable villain, whereas RoboCops aren't memorable. You have a great side character with Samuel L. Jackson and the others, and everything works from the comedy of the characters. So for me, it was Die Hard with Vengeance.
Yeah, this was good. Two great movies. I think Alex did a great job kind of pitching the social commentary of RoboCop and the ultra violence and how epic it is. Joe pitched a movie that is a sequel that takes its lead character and still has him as a grounded, interesting character, great side characters, incredible villain, pointed out specific action sequences that work. And I think the reason I ultimately went with Joe was able to take specific things from RoboCop that were negative, like pointing out, like he didn't just say the visual effects are bad. He said the visual effects are bad in these scenes and put very specific examples of what didn't hold up nearly as well. I also felt Joe didn't necessarily counter this, so I didn't hold it against Alex too much, but Alex spent a lot of his last 30 seconds talking about the legacy of the film and the sequels and how it works to the sequels, and that didn't really matter to me at all because we weren't talking about the sequels, but Joe didn't really say that, so I didn't hold too much weight on it. But I bring it up because I don't think Alex used his 30 seconds to really convince me why RoboCop was better than Die Hard with a Vengeance. So Mark, your vote doesn't count, but where would you have gone?
Oh, there you go, Alex. Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of bought into I kind of bought into his argument a little bit of that. RoboCop does have a bit of legacy, so to speak, and just kind of how it has held up over time and how it kind of fits. It kind of feels like more than just kind of a 80s action movie. It is seen as a bunch of different things. I kind of hooked on to that more than most of what Joe said. But yeah, okay.
That's fair. Well, that does mean your winner is Joe Farrelly. Let's do post-match interviews. Alex, really close game. You and Joe are friends.
Yeah.
If it was 9 p.m. where Joe is, would you be more upset? Or are you kind of happy for him because it's like 2 a.m.?
I don't know if you remember this, but when I last debated and I found out who I was going to be debating against, I told you that no matter what time, Joe would be at his very best to try and beat me, because if it's one thing I know about Joe is he hates losing. And prior experience tell me that Joe hates losing to me, especially for some reason. So I knew that it was going to be tough. I am not upset at all. In fact, I'm actually very happy. This was a really, I think, my best debate performance I've ever had. And I think it does say a lot that I lost. I think that I should stop. But I did have a great time. Joe is a very good friend. And yeah, I could not be happier for him.
Alex, I agree with you. I think this was your best debate performance. I don't know. There was just something about the way you were crafting your arguments. Like, you've always been very articulate and like really good at like bringing up a side of a debate that I wasn't expecting. The Gabriel fight is a perfect example. But yeah, I think tonight it was definitely like a strong, really strong showing for you. So I'm excited to see you come back. When you do come back, I think it'll be even better. Alex, congrats on a match well played. We'll see you next time. As we bring in Mr. Joe Farrelly, moving on to round number 2 of the tournament. Joe, yeah, right. Joe, I'm so sorry that you live where you live. I'm sure you're not, but
wow.
But you know, for us, like it's 8 o'clock, but you're chilling, and it's 2 a.m. and that's commitment. That's dedication. And you played great. Didn't skip a beat. How are you feeling then after this one?
Yeah, it feels good. I don't like seeing Alex lose. I just don't. If I was watching a Fanzone episode, it was Alex versus anybody else, I would be fully on Team Alex, which is why I shouldn't be allowed to judge these things. Alex, I think, brought some really good arguments, stuff that I didn't plan for at all. I just sent him a message. I said, you used my one weakness against me and more than I planned for, and that was religion. Was not expecting some of these arguments to go the way they did, and yeah, I thought it was a really, really close. If you go back and look, I think we each got a clean sweep, and then each time it was 2-1. So it's one vote that decides this whole thing, really, which goes to show how close it was and how well Alex played. And yeah, sometimes those speed rounds, you just got to throw out everything you can remember about a film and what you like about it and see what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, you're moving on to round 2. You're going to be playing the winner of next week's match. So we don't know. We haven't shot it yet either. You're playing the winner of the number 7 seed, Javi Madden, who debuted earlier this year against Kaiser, won that match, earned a spot, or the number 2 seed, the pun master, Robert Kastner. What are your thoughts on this one?
Fun user, I don't know about a master.
Obviously, I've seen more of Robert in debate than I have of Javi. Javi's only had the one so far. Robert's a really good debater, and I would really, really like to do that. I think that would be really fun. I think that could be really interesting. I think we both sort of have very sort of different ideas of strengths. I think there could be a really interesting one. But that being said, I think I'm closer with Javi than I am with Robert. I speak with Javi a lot. Obviously, when we were in that when factions were a thing, we were in that faction together, and I would probably be rooting for Javi just based on the fact that I'm a little bit close with him, and I think that would be really fun too. So I think there's more of an age gap between me and Javi than there is between me and Robert. So I think that can make a really interesting debate when you look at tastes and the way you look at things. I think I think both could be really interesting. But I'd lean Javi just because I know him a little bit better.
Yeah. That's fair. Joe, I'm looking forward to it. This was a great win. You're now at a positive record here in debate. So I look forward to seeing you hopefully continue that streak, maybe get you to a title match. We'll see what happens. But if not, this is a great one to pump the record up. So, Joe, congrats on a match well played. But that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. Thank you to Alex and Joe. Thank you to Mark and Brian. Thank you to everyone else who helps make the show run, the judges, Kirk, Robert, Javi, all those other people that are helping judge. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week with that match, Robert versus Javi, as round 1 of the tournament continues. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
There we go. Thanks a lot. Come again.
Hey, I won't forget what you've done for me here today.
I would prefer that you do.